Made money on the stock market.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is Michael Fraser, and I'm completing this interview on behalf of Dylan Hubbell's request, which was to glean my opinion on the influence in the media in the stock market. And briefly about myself, I am an accredited investment fiduciary and also a fellow of the Life Management Institute, and I'm presently the Regional Sales Vice President for Advantis Capital Management, a $37 billion asset management company based in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Do I read stock news or any kind of news? I actually do both. I subscribe to a series of blogs. I read the Financial Post. I really enjoy the Globe and Mail. I also do follow the news for economic trends and for things happening in the world and political. Follow the price of oil, the Dow Jones. I use a whole bunch of different metrics to try and get a sense of what the stock market's doing, although it is challenging because of particularly bots and a lot of software that's in the financial sector.
Actually, let me tell you something right now. I'm freaking addicted to stock news. I cannot stop myself from watching it. I mean, sometimes it's the same thing, but I just can't stop myself. It's so good. It's such good stuff, but it's awful, my addiction. I freaking lost my family, my kids, my wife left me, my freaking dog died because I forgot to feed him because I was just watching the stock news all the time. I've also developed an addiction to canola oil. Sorry, I'm just freaking right into it. But anyways, I developed an addiction for this as well because I can't eat. I just need my calories from something because I'm just watching it all the time. So it's freaking awful, but I have made bank from it, so guess that's not even that bad.
The question is, have I ever read the news and made money on the stock market? I most definitely have. Probably the most recent example was trying to time when the Liberals were announcing marijuana legislation. There's a company in Moncton, Organigram, and I tried to time the stock for the announcement. So I bought some stock early, and after the announcement, the stock shot. So I used the news media and leveraged that into some quick turnaround profits.
Have you ever read the news and then gone and made a choice in the stock market because of that?
Actually, I have, yes.
Give me some examples.
Well, it's a little bit of a weird one, but it made me freaking bank. I was rolling in the dough for like years afterwards. Little story here. So, I was watching the news one day, and my kids were out there on the trampoline. I was looking at them, and the news said that this one trampoline company lost all their trampolines in this massive forest fire, just burned all their trampolines down. So, I was like, what the heck? I should invest in their competitor, because they'll sell all the trampolines now that the competitor's competitor doesn't have any. So, I did that. Tripled my money. We were freaking loaded. It was sick.
Would it be easy, do you think, for an author to make fake articles to profit off of a stock? It's a very timely question, actually, as there, I believe it was April 11th of just this year, so about a month ago, give or take, month and a half, where the SEC, so the Securities and Exchange Commission, issued very hefty fines to websites that were quite literally doing exactly what you're asking, right? Publishing fake news articles to try and profit off of the stocks that they had in their particular portfolios by either influencing people to buy or sell these securities based off of incorrect information, right? So one of the benefits of kind of the modern stock market news media, if you will, is there's a vast amount of information out there. And one of the detriments is there's a vast amount of information out there, right? So part of that is being able to disseminate through news and utilizing reputable sources and any stock that's publicly traded you could, if you wanted to, you could look at their annual reports. You could look at their statements of additional information. You could look at all the actual accounting files that they file, right? You certainly do run into the Enrons of the world, right, where the accounting isn't particularly accurate, but it's still a pretty good measure as to the actual veracity of their claims from a valuation perspective.
Do you think it's possible for an author to write an article, but be it like a bad article or something mean, trying to get you to invest in a company when really it isn't doing good?
Oh, do I ever. Just like everything else, I've got a nice old story for this. So one day, I was going through the internet again. I was on youtube.com, and this little ad came up in the corner saying McDonald's is releasing the McDouble, McBubble, their new bubblegum brand. I was like, holy crap, that would do crazy. Everybody loves McDonald's. Everybody loves bubblegum. Put the two together, you got a freaking great product there. So I put all my money into McDonald's, and then I later realized it was an absolute scam. Lost all my money there again. It was just a bad time. And then I looked later, and I read who wrote the article. And it was actually, it was a Ronald McDonald impersonator. Not the real man, let me tell you. An impersonator. His shoes weren't red. Those things were freaking yellow. His hair wasn't McDonald's color. It was green. That's just an awful time. I was pissed off, and then I had no money. It was an awful day.
The next question is my opinion on fake news and if it can trick people. I definitely believe that you have to verify the news source. And I do see a lot on the internet, a lot of stock promoters and stock selling. And because I do subscribe to some blogs, I do get a lot of spammed email promoting individual stocks. So if you're not following the news and verifying the sources of them, you can get caught up in the hype. And a lot of these sources try and sell the stock for short-term returns that are generally greater than what the market would bear. And the old saying, if it's too good to be true, it's probably too good. And in this case, it's probably wrong.
So the first question was, in your opinion, can fake news articles trick people into movements in the stock market? The short answer is yes, absolutely. I mean, this is happens often. I wouldn't say it's the overwhelming reason as to why people purchase securities, but there have been very notable events when this has happened, right? If you guys recall the Wolf of Wall Street, right? That was an actual advisory firm based out of Long Island that was essentially running a pump and dump scheme, right? And the single most important thing that makes that work is the distribution of wrong information or misleading information, aka fake news, right? And so I think when we're talking about tricking people into movements in the stock market, it's important to note that it can vary widely based on the security itself, meaning the stock itself. So in other words, it's going to be really hard to put out fake news that's going to significantly affect the stock price of Apple, right, or Facebook or Google. These are just examples. So very large, high trading volume, often traded stocks, right? Where something that's very thinly traded, meaning like there aren't a ton of investors, maybe it's a very small startup, they just went public. So since there's not a lot of trading volume that occurs, a sudden spike in a lot of people either selling it or buying it can influence that price up or down. So again, to make a long answer longer, yes, fake news can certainly influence the stock price. However, I would say that in the event that it does, it's certainly it doesn't even come close to the secondary or the tertiary reason as to why a particular security would move in price. Okay.
I was just wondering if you've ever been tricked by fake news in the past.
Oh, frig, let me tell you something right now. Have I ever? So one day I was just browsing the Facebooks there, catching up, seeing what my old friends were doing back from high school way back when. And I saw this ad saying I could make $3,000 from home per week. That's crazy. I could just be freaking swimming in that money if I wanted. So I quit my job, right? And then I went and researched that, and I realized it's a freaking load of hocus pocus, right? You can't do any of that. It's not actually real. It can trick the bestest stock traders out there like me. So after that, I was broke for a good 20 years. It took me quite a while to get back on my feet, and I had to freaking go to my parents, grandparents, had to go into my freaking retirement fund for that to get back together. It was just an awful time.
Anyway, so the next question, are there any ties to hedge funds and the media? An important question, I think, to clarify, because so hedge funds have certainly become a more popular name as of late, but really all a hedge fund is, it's just a type of fund structure. So you have mutual funds and ETFs, meaning exchange traded funds, unit investment trusts, all these types of things. It's really just a type of legal structure in a way as a basket to kind of contain all these different investments, right? So mutual funds, for example, there's a lot of rules from the Securities and Exchange Commission and FINRA about, what kind of reporting requirements are there, what can you own, how much of it, what can you do inside of it from a leverage and, in other words, borrowing perspective, and how much can you charge investors, things along those lines. Hedge funds are in a lot of ways, they reduce a lot of those restrictions. So they could be very expensive. They could employ a lot of leverage, meaning short selling and going additional long, so taking big bets, so to speak. And they could have a great amount of concentration risk. And they could pay the actual asset manager significantly differently than some other fund structures. That's why generally they're only appropriate, or they're deemed to be more appropriate for what are called accredited investors, in other words, really rich folk, right? So I think has given them a bit of a black eye, in the media, that people think, these are these special vehicles that only rich people get to have, and all the portfolios managers that run them, these hedge fund managers are terrible people, and that's not inherently true. It's just a different structure of a particular vehicle. I think it's become more of in other words, kind of a nomenclature for the broader industry, right? That being said, much like there would be ties to any other type of fund structure from the media, the inverse would also be true, right? So I would say in summation, yes, the media certainly can and does influence the stock market, such to the extent that fake news does. It's not going to move the market, so to speak, in a very meaningful way, but it certainly can, and I'm sure is right now, influencing an individual investor to purchase or sell a stock based on what they may have read on some article that somebody shared on Facebook, right?
They are so linked together, let me tell you. A conjoined twin, that's just like the media and the stock market. They're separate, but they completely rely on each other. This is the joint between conjoined twins, but it's like the stock market. You see, the stock market over here feeds the media. The media feeds the stock market. It's just a super strong link in between the two, and it's inseparable, just like conjoined twins.
Absolutely. If you have ever watched CNBC, they are located on the center trading floor of the New York Stock Exchange, right in front of the opening bell. And I was actually just on the New York Stock Exchange trading floor the other day with some traders, and I was taken aback. There was a new company called Cheddar. I haven't heard of them, but they have a seat on the floor as well, where they are doing essentially direct media communications, so think Facebook Live and Twitch and those kinds of things that are direct to consumer in lieu of going through a publishing company. Fox Business is also there, so there's a lot of media just on the New York Stock Exchange floor. And furthermore, when you think about what would make an investor want to purchase a particular stock, now obviously that question varies pretty significantly by investor and then also by type, right? The reason why an institution would want to purchase a stock versus why grandma and grandpa might want to buy a stock versus a 30-year-old might want to buy a stock. Very different reasons, but a lot of that comes down to, do you think that it's appropriately valued, and do you think that it's has decent prospects to grow in the future, right? Either one of those things, and the combination of those two things are very good. A lot of times the average investor receives that information or the perception of that information from a various media outlet, right? Not necessarily, the CNNs of the world, but a lot of stock-specific publishing companies. So think, maybe Bloomberg or the FT, the Wall Street Journal. And there's some analyst companies as well, Morningstar, Reuters, those types of things that really starts to take a look in the actual asset management of a particular firm. So, the media plays an enormous role in the stock market, and since many people aren't, really sitting in front of a computer paying attention to what the market is doing on a, minute by minute basis, it can also, in a certain way, add, kind of a fan to the fire, if you will, if a particular market sell-off seems to be rapid. So think about the financial crisis of 08-09. Many people, unless they were, hearing it from a newspaper or hearing it on TV or any of those types of things, probably didn't really know what was why the stock market was going down, or really what even that meant, right? So the media plays a very important role in communicating that information to the broader public, and also in a way conveying that information to the broader institutional public, such as ourselves.
One thing I want everybody to know is to not make stupid mistakes. Another little story here. So I heard all this hype around this Bitcoin, whatever it is, So I was like, I want to get in that, right? Seems like you make bank off of it. But I got a little confused and I bought Buttcoin by accident and lost like 99% of my money, and I was freaking poor. I was honestly eating onions for a year and a half after that. It was a bad time. So don't do what I did and make silly old mistakes.
Buttcoin is the worst.
Is it ever?
Well, thank you very much for doing this interview. We sure did learn a lot.
You're welcome. So did I.
Yeah, have a good day.